Tan Swaminiti Namine. Maybe one person can follow. Whoever gets there first on the mute button.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namin.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Simon, you were...
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarin.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki Shri Shri Radha Landaneshwara
Jai,
ki Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev
Jai,
Subhadra Maharani ki Shri
Jai,
Shri Gaur Nitai ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Welcome back to today's session. Just adjust the lighting here. Hmm. Anyway, what it is. Okay. Welcome back. We're on chapter 2 now. And we covered a good deal last week, going through the responses to Arjun's questions. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So Srimad Bhagavad Gita is a very special book. And the knowledge that is found in this chapter 2 is very, very essential, you could say, for our Krishna conscious foundation. Now, we covered many, many basic points last week, including the nature of the soul. I'd just like to hear from you. Can you just tell me one point in connection with the soul? You might remember many from those several verses, starting from approximately verse 12. Ganesh Prabhu?
The soul, it never dies.
Never dies. Okay.
Well, with a lot more explanation to it, with like a lot more specifics, like you can't, like lots of ways you can't die, but it's you can't die as a soul. I'm the soul, so I
Yes.
can't die.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Right. What else?
When Lord Arjuna finally, when Arjuna decided to take shelter of Krishna, that's when he started instructing him. He said, "I'm your disciple, and I'm surrendered to you. Please instruct me."
That's true, but specifically on the soul, what are properties of the soul?
It can't be cut. It
Yeah,
can't be
good.
burned. Can't
Yeah.
be. What
Moistened by
else?
water.
Moistened by water. It was all 5 elements, and then no weapons.
Yes.
So like when Krishna was telling Arjuna, you have all these weapons, all these amazing weapons, but none of those weapons can hurt the soul.
Yes. Very good. And then something about clothes. Can you remember something on clothes?
The soul switching bodies is like like us putting on new clothes. So we should not lament when we change clothes.
Yes, we just discard them, right? We just discard the old clothes.
Yeah. A
And
sober person is not affected by this.
yes,
By happiness and sadness.
you're simply changing the outer garment. Like if I change this jumper, this top, then
Oh
I'm
no,
still,
Prabhu.
I'm
I'm
still
so sad that you took your jumper off.
hang on. If I change this, if I change this jumper, I'm still the same person underneath. And yes, that's the point with the soul. The only difficulty is that we cannot remember our previous lives, and therefore that gives us some doubts as to whether this actually happens. When you change clothing, you can see the old clothing, right? And you know your identity is there. So it's an analogy. It's not, it doesn't supply proof. And maybe we will, maybe we'll say something on analogies a bit later also, what their purpose is in Shastra. But basically this gives us a little picture of something. It allows us to accommodate the point that the body is discardable, it's perishable. Although, of course, in our life, we are supposed to take great care of the body because it is useful for devotional service and useful for our aims in life. But other than that, it is simply another body, just like all the other animals, birds, beasts, humans, humanoids, species around. Yes, Prabhuji, you have your hand raised.
Prabhu, since Krishna gives us all our intelligence, I'm just thinking, like, if Krishna let us remember our past lives, wouldn't that change the whole like way everything works? So
Yeah.
why is that like? Yeah. Why? Why does Krishna not let us remember our past lives?
Why does he let us remember? He doesn't
Not
generally.
let us. I mean, why do we forget our past lives? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just think, like in this life, if you've undergone some trauma, right? Then many people do. I mean, none of our lives are 100% blissful from beginning to end. And many people have gone through a lot of difficulties in life. And now just see what that does to a person. When someone's gone through a particularly troublesome period, they find it very difficult to function normally after that. A period is needed. And sometimes those traumas, those issues stay with them for many, many years, sometimes the whole lifetime, unless they make an active effort to deal with them. Now, just imagine what would happen if you could actually recall all your previous lives, or say whatever number you choose. It probably just See, the thing is, at the point of death, it is such a traumatic and troublesome situation, whoever you happen to be, that is a severe trauma. And if you could remember that, and let's say you could even remember the circumstances leading up to it, most people's deaths are not wonderful and blissful, and they don't pass away in the middle of the night with a smile on their face. Normally, often something troublesome has happened before that. Either they've been attacked, some accident has happened, some very painful medical condition has taken place. Maybe they've been zonked out on anesthetic because literally everything in their body has fallen apart. And remember, if you could just remember all of that, well, you would find it very difficult to carry on in this life. And then let's consider that's just the bad side of it, right? That's just the point of death. You could have so many issues and difficulties during that life, and maybe grudges against people and things like that, which you might then try to enact. And conversely, you might have had a very good life in the past. You might have had riches, wealth, you might have had facilities, maybe you're a particularly strong, powerful person, and now you're what you are. And that would cause you great problems as well, right? You'd be hankering back to the day when you were someone or something, and now you've got what you've got, and that would cause you big problems as well. So it's actually a confused mess. And sometimes in our lives, we spend a good chunk of it trying to almost overcome some of the difficulties from our from our youth, youth or periods after that. And everyone's different, and everyone's gone through a lot of different things. And we're all trying to resolve those things in different ways. And those people that cannot get over it and they remain stuck in those problems, well, they kind of just continue to wallow in whatever problems they were in. But we need to rise above it. And so actually having all that information to hand doesn't really help us. It just gives us another dose of complexity to try to overcome in our life. Because what matters really is what you do with your moments of time right now. Let the past sleep and the future still awaits, right? The present is what is in your control. And that's what you can do something about right now. Anything else from that section? Any other points on the soul? Maybe we can consider that obviously Krishna's presentation has been on the principle of the soul. Maybe we can consider some of the basic arguments that Krishna gave Arjun, which were on the karmakand level, or the obviously jnana is involved. Do you remember we showed that chart at the end? And it wasn't exactly crystal clear what category each of the items could fall into. But there are certain clear areas of the verses where the answers to the questions are found from Krishna's words. So do you remember how Krishna deals with some simple karmakand or jnanakand responses to the idea that he will incur sinful acts if he continues to fight? How did Krishna respond to that?
He will attain the heavenly planets in the performance of his duties. If he fights without thinking of loss or gain.
And if he loses, right?
And if he loses, yes.
And if he loses, yes. If the Kshatriya is killed on the battlefield in the course of his duties, he attains the heavens if he's performed his duty correctly. If, on the other hand, the Kshatriya fights and he wins, well, he attains the kingdom, right? That's what's ahead of him. He attains the present kingdom. And then in a future fight, yes, he has the opportunity to get the heavenly kingdom. Because Kshatriyas, you know, they don't stop after one fight. It's the whole Kshatriya code is one of having to respond to challenges. And they will arise from petty entities or from substantial warriors in the life of a Kshatriya's life. So they're faced with challenges. Yes, the point is, if you fight and you win, you get the kingdom. If you fight and you lose, you get the heavens. So what are you worried about? But then the point was made, however, if something, then your life would be not worth living. For a Kshatriya, there is a certain point.
His fame, well, he would lose his like reputation as a fighter.
Yes, yes. For a Kshatriya, infamy is worse than death. And if people were to continue calling Arjuna a coward, well, that's not something he could bear. If you go up to a big, strong fighter and you tell them, you weakling, you coward, they might not take it so well. And certainly someone like Arjuna, who's a trained Kshatriya with weapons from all the demigods. And don't forget Arjuna's prowess. He has defeated a whole demon and others that were tormenting the demigods. Indra had engaged him, right? The Nivata Kavacha, that whole episode. And Arjun did service for the demigods. That's very substantial. So he's a serious warrior, and if he's described as a weakling or impotent, well, that really winds up a Kshatriya. And that's how he would have to live for the rest of his life. That's how people would talk. Ah, that weakling Arjun. That one who couldn't be bothered to fight. So yes, these are important points. Then Krishna goes on in different ways, and then a principle is made of action, inaction, fighting or not fighting. And Krishna tries to take Arjun down the path of prioritizing what is it? Action based on intelligence, which would also be called Buddhi Yoga, Nishkarma Karma Yoga. You know, those are terms which will go along with it. Now, what is the essence of the instructions there?
Getting detached from the fruit of the work. So he said, like, work in a renounced, as in a renounced spirit, but don't renounce your activity.
Yes, that's right. Conduct your service, work as you have to work, but do so without attachment to the results. And which category does that come into?
That the Buddhi Yoga, the Nishkarma Karma.
Yes, Buddhi Yoga. It's Nishkama Karma Yoga. And what does Nishkama mean? Kama means a result, a desire, some enjoyment. Nishkama means karma which is performed without enjoyment. And that does not lead to any karmic consequences. So the problem is that when you engage in normal activities, it's a problem. Why is it a problem when you engage in any normal activities in this world, including fighting?
Is it the mentality behind that activity?
Well, yes, but what is the consequence of performing any activity in this world?
It generates karmic results, and we have to be around to receive the punya or papa, the good or the bad results eventually.
Yes, that's the whole problem. That whether you do something good or bad, you have to receive the results of it through some karmic consequence later. A reaction has a reaction, and that's true in this karmic sense. But what you do, what you accrue, you will have to receive it, benefit or suffer from it later. So for a devotee, that is not really desirable, because it means, basically, it means more birth and death. More birth and death. And so sometimes people speak, and they say, I am doing my karma, I'm doing my duty. They don't actually know what they're saying. What they're saying is, I am creating my future generations of suffering in this world. That's what they're actually saying, but they say it as a matter of pride. I'm doing my duty. I'm doing my karma. You might have heard that. People say that. Actually, it's not karma that gives you any success. Of course, if your desires are material, if you want some elevation or to the heavenly planets, or you want some riches or wealth, yeah, maybe you see it as an advantage to do some piety. But the real problem is that because it gives you another birth, another dose of old age, disease, birth and death, right? Birth, old age, disease, and death, and then the three miseries: adibhautik, adidaivik, adiatmic. These are all basic principles which you all know. This is the consequence of being in this world. So actually doing your duty, doing your actions doesn't actually help. It actually causes you problems. And therefore we are trying to learn the process by which that karma can be modified so that this consequence doesn't come. Because after all, we all have to act. It's a principle, isn't it? Everyone has to act. And in the next few chapters, chapter 3 is entitled Karma Yoga. Chapter 5 is also entitled Karma Yoga in the Gita. And in between, you will find chapter 4, which deals with transcendental knowledge, which is necessary for us to fully practice Karma Yoga. So the teachings of the Gita, the teachings of Krishna, which are given in summary in this chapter, encourage one to come to the platform of Nishkama Karma Yoga. Actions that you perform without desire, which then do not have a karmic consequence. That's the whole point of it. That karma is no good, but karma yoga is very good. And to transfer your karma into karma yoga, linking it to Krishna and dissolving it, requires transcendental knowledge. That's why the Gita is structured in the way it is. That you have in chapter 2, which is basically a summary of the whole of the Gita. It's got a summary of the key principles without much explanation. Krishna just gives it to Arjuna. In chapter 3, you will see how things develop on the whole topic of karma. And then chapter 4, Krishna has to supply some information to make it possible to allow Arjuna to transition from karma to karma yoga. And those full details are given then in chapter 5. So we're building up now that program. And at the heart of it is no attachment to results and working out of duty. Now you might remember something from verse 41. Verse 41, right? Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana bahushaka yanantascha buddhayo vyavasayanam. One second, just let me get the Gita up so I don't quote the wrong numbers to you.
44.
It could be, could well be.
No, 41 just now to Shloka.
It's
You said it's
40.
41.
I think it is 41, but I'm just
It is.
sometimes slips of mind, the precise numbers for me. Yes, it is 41. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahushaka hyanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam. Single-pointed determination, like a laser, pointed, focused, no spreading out. It's the advantage of a laser, right? You can project a beam many hundreds of meters, kilometers. It's possible even to send a laser beam to the moon. It's possible. And that requires focus, right? And you may even have a little laser, a small one, and green light or red light or something, and you can project it long distances. And it just contains it's only powered by little energy from a battery. But just see how much focus there is when the rays are converged into a single direction and they're coherent. When your energy gets spread out, you can't achieve much. And therefore, laser-like attention and discipline very much helps each of us in any aspect of life that we want to succeed in. Any aspect. Studies, work, relationships, anything. If you're focused, determined, you can succeed. And therefore, this is also needed in spiritual life. A spiritual life is just as important a subject or a skill or a practice. It's all of those, actually. Knowledge, skills, practice. It's all of those. And spiritual life requires some endeavor from us too. Sometimes people have the idea that spiritual life should be easy. I shouldn't even have to think. After all, it's connected with God, right? Well, given that our whole life is concerned with thinking, and we're prepared to think in order to pass exams, or we're prepared to think in order to succeed at work, and we do so much thinking in order to make money, or attain the sense gratification that we want, or to manipulate people as we want. We're prepared to do so much for that. Why are we not prepared to do that for Krishna? Yeah, it's not reasonable, is it? Here is potentially the greatest gift you could ever get in this world, and you're not prepared to do anything for it. Well, this is this is endorsed by the Srimad Bhagavatam, where it describes the laziness of people in the age of Kali. Prayan alpayusha sabya kalavasmin yugejana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya yupadruta. In this iron age of Kali, people are lazy, intelligent, quarrelsome, misguided, and above all, always disturbed. And their lifespan is very short. Prayena alpa ayusha sabya. Everyone is of meager lifespans. And that's how most people live their lives, really. Even if they externally have good health, they live it in a very miserly, meager way, focused on very petty, temporary things. So far better that following the advice, the guidelines of the devotees, the example of the devotees, the words of Sri Krishna, we make some attempt to really put some energy into Krishna consciousness. Do something for Krishna. You're prepared to do so much for yourself and your senses and your future karma. Do something instead for Krishna. What is the problem? It's actually the best possible engagement of all your energies and faculties. Everything you do in this world, devoid of Krishna, is temporary and limited. Their results are limited and temporary, as the third chapter will tell us. But anything connected to Krishna is eternal. And so we're learning to follow that eternal path. To do so, we need some discipline. Sadhana means discipline. Sadhana means you focus on your regulated activities. That's the feature of Vaidhi sadhana, especially regulated activities that give you a framework to not let the mind's distractions affect you. We all make resolutions, don't we? And it's very easy to do so. New Year's, this time, that time, maybe after we meet our spiritual master, we're in a fired up mood and we You know, we're on a pure devotional platform. From tomorrow, I'll be up at 2 a.m. and everything will be blissful and ecstatic, and I'll be doing so much service. And then something turns up, some reality turns up, some duties turn up, other people turn up, distractions turn up, likes, dislikes turn up. Well, to help you carry on, despite all of that, sadhana is important. A framework of regulated activities that you do, regardless of how you feel about it. That is how we learn to develop vyavasayatmika buddhi. We keep going with patience and with steadiness. And steadiness is exactly what Arjun has been lacking so far. So this is why Krishna is going into this section. From about text 41 and onwards, he speaks on this vyavasayatmika buddhi and intelligence. And the thing that counteracts vyavasayatmika buddhi is bhoga and aishwarya, which is 44, right? Enjoyment and opulence. When those two temptations come to us, we are prepared to throw out our sadhana in their pursuit. And that's not very good then. You have problems. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says something about vyavasayatmika intelligence. He says, on a practical point of view, that means you accept the instruction of the spiritual master as your life's mission. That's what it means. You accept the instructions of the spiritual master as your life's mission. Now, how many of you here are initiated? I don't think anyone. How many of you are on a path of prospective initiation in the sense that you have a spiritual master or someone that you are following? Yes, 1, 2, 3. Excellent. And then for the rest, it is definitely something to consider in due course. But once you're informed with knowledge from the Gita, what the value is, what the purpose is. So if we're learning to do that, and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that vyavasayatmika intelligence means accepting the instructions of the spiritual master as your mission in life, then that gives you a framework of discipline. The spiritual master will tell you, rise early, as Prabhupada did many times, right? Now, we will probably fail at that many times also, but let's not forget the desire of the spiritual master and then try and redo it again. Try and do it again. We fail once, doesn't matter. You get knocked down, you get back up again, as the song goes. Right? That's how it is. You don't give up, you don't lie flat, you don't give up. Never give up in the pursuit of Krishna consciousness. Whatever challenges come, whatever failings you have, keep going. And the spiritual master and the devotees are there to give you that encouragement. So when you're under the framework of guidance from a spiritual master, and really all of you are in one sense anyway under the guidance of a spiritual master, in the sense that you've accepted the teachings, you're accepting some teachings from Srila Prabhupada. He's our guru. He is our Shiksha Guru, right? For all persons. It's the instructing spiritual master for ISKCON, for the world, really, in the sense of the knowledge. So you are already acting in that capacity, whether you have formally accepted someone for the purpose of Harinam and Diksha, or whether that will come later. So if we learn to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions, then that will keep us in good stead throughout all our struggles. Any points on that? Okay, so we have to work, we have to do some action, we cannot be inactive, and we have to change our consciousness to perform actions in the correct spirit without a desire for the results. Then there is no karma. That's basic summary. So now Krishna is going to present a few points which are meant to kick Arjun out of the self-pity, wallowing hole he's got himself into. Don't forget, Krishna's words towards Arjun weren't exactly very, you could say, diplomatic or, you know, softly in text 11 and then earlier as well. He said, Ashocha nanvashochastvam pragyavadamscha bhashase gatasuna gatasuncha nanu sochanti pandita. You are speaking great learned words, pragyavadams, elaborate sentences. But a saintly person doesn't speak like that, right? Pragyavadam shabhasase gatasuna gatasuncha nanu sochanti pandita. Someone who's a real pandit doesn't lament like you are doing. But he is in that situation and Krishna needs to bring him out now. And so from text 62, we'll focus on that for some moments. Text 62 gives us a sequence by which one enters a kind of a pathetic, directionless state. It's a whole sequence, an elaborate sequence of fall down, which is very much a topic for us to learn thoroughly, learn properly. So we'll go to that verse. And let's have someone recite it, please, the Sanskrit. Whoever would like to have a go.
ध्यायदो विषयान् पुंसा सङ्गस्तेषुपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जयते कामा कामक्रोधोऽभिजायते.
Yes, anyone else like to have a go repeating that? Okay, dhyayato vishayan pumsam sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodha vijayate. Let's read the translation. Smita, can you read the translation, please?
While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises.
This is something you can draw as a flowchart. Very clear sequence here. And it starts with contemplating the objects of the senses. We do it every day. We do it every moment, practically. We've done it all our life and lives, contemplating the objects of the senses. And so for this purpose, let's remind ourselves what the senses are. Okay, who can tell me, how many senses do we have now, according to the Vedic concept?
Is it 6?
6 in one, yes, can be 6. Another comprehensive
10, Prabhu?
10, yes, 10. Because those are broken down into 2 categories. Knowledge acquiring and active. The Vedic concept includes the active organs or the active abilities, if you like, as being part of the senses. Those that bring you information and those that allow you to act. That's considered to be an indriya. And that's loosely translated in the best way possible using available terminology into sense. So now we in English don't typically refer to active senses as senses. We don't. They're called organs, right? Active organs like that. But in the Vedic concept, they're considered indriyas, all of them. And so we have 5 of them. What are the knowledge acquiring senses? The gyanendriyas.
Touch, taste, sight, hearing, ears. Wait, yeah, hearing, smelling,
Yes.
nose. So would it be nose or smelling, Prabhu? How does it?
Right.
How is it
So, so there's an organ. There's an organ which is the nose. There is the concept, if you like, that is the sense of smell. And then the third thing is also there. There's an object that is connected to these, a sense object. So these 3 things exist in a proper understanding of how it all works. In order to experience vision, you need an organ and the whole processing that goes on inside. And that's why Prabhuji's answer that there are 6 senses, because that listing of 6 includes the mind. Right? Senses are considered 5 senses grouped around the mind. So actually in our list now with 10, you can say it's actually 11 if you include the mind. So you have always the sense itself, the sense organ, and the sense object. And you can draw a little chart for yourself with these things. But as you said, the sense of touch, the sense of smell, taste, sight, hearing. These are the 5 knowledge acquiring senses. Now let's consider the senses of action, and these are called karmendriyas. What are the organs of action? Let's look at the organs. It's easier that way. The organs of action.
Breathing. Lungs.
Breathing, yes, I suppose that's more of an internal kind of thing to keep you going. Right?
Your hands, your arms.
Yes.
Are those okay? Your
Yeah.
legs,
Yes.
head.
But what does it do exactly, the head?
What
can you do with your head?
You can think.
Think of some action.
I can nod my head.
What are you doing right now?
Communicating.
Speech, right?
Speech, yep.
Speech is one of the main things. With your feet, you move, motion, right? That's the feature that you attain with that particular organ. With your hands, you can act, you can do things, right? Motion with your feet, different actions with your hands, different manipulations, different. We couldn't function without our hands, could we really? What we do. And of course, then the biologists, zoologists, and whatever, they'll tell you that humans, especially with their thumb, can achieve that which other animals cannot. A bit of mundane science for you, but still factually true. And with that special facility, we can do so much. And then there are 2 other things which are less kind of desired, but they're essential also. Reproduction and active, and the organs of reproduction, male and female. And then excretion also, the removal of waste products. These are active things in the body. So these are the 5 karmendriyas, the 5 senses, and their associated organs. Now they don't have objects, you see, because those senses don't have objects that they take in. Rather, they almost produce objects. Do you see how it works? The knowledge acquiring senses connect to objects outside, and the karmendriyas almost produce objects. If you want to consider speech as an object of some kind, an action as some kind of result. So here specifically, it is referring to contemplating the objects of the senses. And one meditates, I would like this nice thing to taste, nice thing to eat. And more complex things involving more than one sense are always there. Films try to get your sense of hearing and sight working, right? Not yet smell. I think I might have mentioned. Not yet smell and touch. Not quite there yet in the maybe in the future with 3D holographic artificial stimulation and whatever. maybe you could just put yourself in some suit and just have all the nerves just stimulated, and you can even feel a sense of touch, maybe. What a sad life that would be. But that seems to be the way people are actively transforming themselves into robots as things go on. They literally lose all the natural abilities. So yes, contemplating, you conceive of something, you want to hear some nice music, you want to see some nice sights, you want to touch some nice soft objects, right? Taste something tasty. And combinations of all of that. Then you want to be intoxicated by the whole feeling of all of those from a person, perhaps, in close company, close physical contact with a person. You get many of those, the sight, the sound, the smell, the touch, all comes together. So by contemplating the objects of the senses, This all sounds very innocent because after all, we've got senses and they're meant to connect to objects. What's wrong with it all? Well, this is what's wrong with it. One develops attachment to them. I've had a rasgulla, I'm now fully attached to it. I want more, I want more, I want more. Does it ever end? Does it ever end? One develops attachment to them. And what's wrong with attachment? Okay, it's good to be attached, maybe. I mean, in your family members are very happy if you're fully attached to them, right? Now, what's the problem with it? The problem is lust develops. What is lust? Lust is a deep-seated drive to acquire something. Its attachment is okay, it's just like I like it, it's nice. Lust is I must have it, I need it, I have to now drive myself to get it. You can see where that takes you. When people act on their lust, they commit sinful acts, typically. Ravana, his lust, even though he had absolutely everything, because his senses were totally uncontrolled, he was a very lusty person. And he went after something that was the Lord's property, never his own, Mother Sita. And disaster. So that lust is another concentrated level from attachment. And it then drives you. Now, what happens when your lust is not fulfilled? You become angry. You become very, very angry. And that's so far what we've learned from this verse. And it started with something as innocent as contemplating the objects of the senses. The robber contemplates the nice watch that someone is wearing or the mobile phone in their hands. Then the robber, at least if you're in London, gets on some electric bike, rides up to you while you're on the street trying to call someone, snatches it from you and runs off. And then if you defend yourself, which is quite tricky because they're sped off long ago, so let's say someone stops him and a fight takes place, right? Anger. My acquisition of this object was impeded. I will become angry. Anyway, just a bit of a trivial example, but that's how it starts. You contemplate something. I want this. You start scheming in your mind how to get it. It becomes a full-blown attachment in your mind. A whole plan develops in the mind. You become obsessed with it, right? You become obsessed with it, and then there's no limit to what you do after that. Once you're totally obsessed with something, your behavior goes down wrong lines. So the next verse tells you where this develops. So let's, could someone read text 63? The Sanskrit. Come on, someone, you all have to learn these verses, so don't shy. This is the best time to practice. All right, I'm going to choose people, okay? Bidisha, you first.
Somehow I knew that.
You have the verse, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Krodhat bhavati sammohat smriti vibramaha, smriti brahmashad buddhi, nasho buddhi nashat pranayasati.
Yes. You'll notice a few words are there. Krodha, which means anger. Buddhi is there. Buddhi nasha is there twice. Someone else, would you like to read this verse? Okay, so the translation is, from anger, complete delusion arises. From delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. We reached the stage of anger from the previous verse. When you're angry, what happens to you? Imagine when you get completely angry, what happens to you? Yes, Prabhu, Ranesh?
You lose control of yourself.
You lose control of yourself. Okay, that may happen, but something else happens in terms of your thinking ability. Yeah.
You don't
Intelligence
think properly.
gone.
Ranesh, what were you saying?
That you don't think properly.
Sorry, just say it again. I can't hear you.
You don't think properly.
You don't think properly, yes. You cannot think clearly. And if you know any decisions you've made from a situation of great anger, they're probably not the best decisions in hindsight. You cannot think clearly. You lose. Your mind only focuses on the thing it's angry about and ignores other factors. And so any decision you make is going to be problematic. And that's what it refers to delusion. You don't know what is correct and what is not correct anymore. When that happens, it says memory is bewildered. Memory means it's slightly broader than maybe just our very specific memory. It's more of a bigger sense of awareness of what you should do. That memory also is kind of implicit in the meaning of that word smriti, what you should do. You lose completely what you should do. And then your intelligence is lost. Intelligence is that ability in us to discriminate. And that discrimination ability and spiritual intelligence, that's two meanings, doesn't it? Intelligence means the knowledge that you have from spiritual sources. And it also means your discriminatory ability. Well, that was already lost just a bit earlier in the complete delusion part. But now your spiritual intelligence, your guidelines, your following of Shastra, those things, that is now lost. When that's lost, you now engage in sinful acts because you're no longer guided by proper directions, proper frameworks. And you therefore fall down again into the material pool. Another birth, another death, another life, another dose of suffering, 3 miseries, 4 stages of life. And you're swimming around in the material pool. You might think, it's wonderful. I don't mind it. It's not so bad after all. But yeah, is it really all that great? Have you never had any troubles in your life? And let's say maybe you haven't. Maybe you've had a good life. You've had a good life so far. You had a fortunate upbringing. You had nice facilities. Everything was good for you. Well, how long will it last, do you think? Is there a guarantee that it will last forever? Is there a guarantee that you will get it in the next life? The answer generally is no. Generally, the answer is no, because when someone is well situated, with opulence, facility, their behavior is normally sinful. Normally, right? Not always 100%, but normally. The more money you have, the more you can do bad things with it, right? Therefore, very, very wealthy people engage in all sorts of illicit activities. It's not a universal principle I'm saying, that it just tends to happen like that. And sometimes, obviously, in preaching, you meet many people, and often I meet kids of very, very rich parents. And some of those kids are completely wild. They've had nothing to worry about their lives, and they've had everything handed to them on a plate, and sadly they blew it all. Drink, drugs, all sorts of things, just a life of decadence. Yes, the wealth was there, the flash cars were there, but character was all gone. Now, this doesn't always happen. I'm not saying these are principles. Every wealthy person, every wealthy family has these kind of kids. Not at all. The complete opposite is true also. But it can often be like that. And that's why Queen Kunti also prays that Janma Ishwarya Shruta Shribi Redamana Madapuman Naivarhatya Vidatum May Dvam Kinchana Gocharaha. Very famous prayer of Queen Kunti. That Janma Aishwarya Shruta Shribir, when someone is living a life focused on desiring good birth, opulence, right? What are the other two? Janma Aishwarya Shruta, learning, Shri, wealth. Then all of those four things, high birth, all of that, they lead you to be so preoccupied with all that that comes in between you and Krishna. But otherwise, she says, it's very easy to approach you, but not if you're in this category. So be very aware of it. The only way we can remove the poisonous fangs from any of our assets is by connecting them to Krishna. Otherwise, they will attack us. It's the only way to defang it. So this is the whole sequence. Now, hopefully you've got a nice flowchart there. Has anyone drawn a little flowchart with all these points that we've made? If any of you have, could you show us on your camera? Just hold it up, maybe. Yes, good. Smita? Yes, nice. That's exactly what you need. That is a sequence that you can just refer to again and again and again in life in general. Whichever stage you happen to be in the middle, you can know what started it. You can think back to, why am I angry right now? Think about it like that. Consider what it was that caused you to become angry and see if you can trace it back to some desire for sense object. After all, if you don't desire a particular sense object, you won't become angry. So it was there somewhere. Someone's behavior may have annoyed you, but maybe you had an expectation that that person would behave in a certain way. Maybe that was the sense object that you wanted, that they would be a nice person and thereby satisfy your senses. Maybe that's what you thought. And then something different happened. You'll be able to trace all of this back, because our sadness and distress and happiness in this life is all connected and derives from our desires. From all our desires. All right, let's take some questions. Any questions on this? We'll read these purports. Let's go to text 62. And we'll read the first paragraph of the purport up to, say, Haridas Thakur. Bidisha, do you have a question or do you want to read?
Oh, question.
Question. Okay, fine.
Yes, Prabhu. So I can talk about myself. In the past, I would try to worship Krishna or anything if I'm in trouble or something. So there is a motive, like why you're trying to worship I'm talking about like my younger days. But now, like if I'm worshiping Krishna, or if I'm like every day we get into 2 hours of we have mantra meditation session and all that. And thing that we are seeking is how to remember him always and how to get more closer to him. So that attachment that we are seeking from Lord Krishna, that is pure, you're saying. But if we are asking anything in return, which will give us material satisfaction, that is wrong. For that time being, if I'm looking for any resolve of issues or sickness of anybody, of my relatives or anything, that is not right. But so long I'm worshiping him to get closer to him, to bestow me with the blessings to know him more and more, that is spiritual.
Not quite. That hasn't been the focus of this set of verses so far. our approach to Krishna in terms of the purity of our bhakti, that will come much later, actually. We haven't really gone into that. This is more dealing with just the physical consequences of what happens when you attach. Krishna isn't really involved in this. It's like there's a nice tasty item there, and you want to go for it. It doesn't have any philosophical base involvement, really. It's just the simple mechanics of how your senses in this conditioned body work. But that is a whole topic that we will explore later. I don't know if we'll necessarily explore it in the first 6 chapters.
It just came as a question, Prabhu, like
Yes.
when we were discussing all of it, like what am I doing regularly to remember him versus like how I'm manipulating my senses, like, yes, we get angry, workplace, yes, we have all of these things. Yes, I might feel eating something which I'm not supposed to, like small things I was just thinking. So that's why the question came. Sorry, Prabhu, nothing like
It's a good question. It just it doesn't have a simple answer, actually.
I got you.
It has there's several layers to that question, and there's several verses from the Bhagavatam also which can give insight into this. But yes, maybe at some point we can try and address that also.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Why don't you read a part of the purport for us? Yeah, if you start from the purport for this verse 62 and go up to, say a few lines.
The purport for 62. Okay. Purport. One who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the objects of the senses. The senses require real engagements, and if they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects, and the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, but when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal, and as a result, Kartikeya was born. When
Yeah.
Haridasa, sorry.
Yeah, we can stop there. It will go on to different examples, but I want to touch on this first part of this, where Prabhupada says that the senses require real engagements. Now, the yogis and some spiritual practitioners are embarrassed by their senses, and they try to nullify them by denying their senses everything. That's not really our process at all. We may restrict our senses from certain highly undesirable items, and therefore we have our regulative principles, no meat eating, intoxication, and illicit sex, gambling. But the senses cannot be restricted completely, and they have to have things. And you have to eat to survive also. That's a factor. So the question is, which senses, which objects do I give these senses? And the best way to choose the objects is by starting with a fixed goal. And that goal is the transcendental loving service of the Lord. If you decide to direct what your senses can interact with based upon your desire to have transcendental loving service to the Lord, then your senses will automatically be engaged in wholesome, uplifting things. With your eyes, you will see the beautiful form of their lordships. With your ears, you will hear their kirtan going on and hear Krishna Katha of different types. With your tongue, you will taste Krishna Prasad. With your skin, with your body, you may, embrace other devotees. That's an example that's given. With your feet, you will walk, or you will travel to the temples of the Lord, or to see the devotees. There's a very nice description in terms of Ambarish Maharaj, where he does all these things. Nice verses to come later. With his hands, he would cleanse the temple of the Lord. With his mouth, he would speak the katha of the Lord. With his ears, he would hear, like that. And that way, your senses are engaged. With your nose, you smell the flower that's been offered to Krishna. It's a very, very, you could say, intelligently designed process. Not designed by some acharya or something, designed by Krishna himself. The process of Krishna consciousness comes from Krishna. So he's the best, he's the best master to follow, really. And all his genuine servants are also the best masters to follow. So we have to have real engagement. These are points we can learn from this purport. The senses are always going to be drawn to objects. And it says here very clearly, in the material world, including even Lord Shiva and Brahma, each one of them is subject to the influence of the sense objects. And Prabhupada says the only way to get out of this puzzle of material existence or material, existence is to become Krishna conscious. It's the only real way. All those people following other paths, Jnana Yoga, Karma Kand, they cannot really fully get rid of it. All they can do is just counteract the effects of the senses or try to abstain from them. That doesn't last forever. So the real point here is this term which you know, dovetail. Dovetailing your propensities in the service of the Lord. You have a desire to eat something? Fine. Prabhupada kept at one point a jar of gulab jamuns at the back of the temple. Easy reach for everyone, right? ISKCON bullets. Your senses want to eat something? Fine. Go here. Take one, eat it. No problems. That's why all our temples, right? We give out sweets at reception. There's some maha going on. There's something going on always. Yes. Not about suppression. Only on Ekadashi days we do a bit of suppression, or Janmashtami day, or festival days. And even that's not forced. That's each person according to an encouragement for them to do that. And so our way of dealing with the senses is to dovetail them, give them alternative engagements which are wholesome. Let's go to 63. Purport for 63. And let's read the whole of that purport. Let's have someone else. Maybe Smita, you want to read? Text 63 purport.
Srila Rupa Goswami has given us this direction. Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vishnuta mumukshubhi parityago vairagyam halgu katyate. By development of Krishna consciousness, one can know that everything has its use in the service of the Lord. Those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects, and as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain to the perfect stage of renunciation. Their so-called renunciation is called falgu, or less important. On the other hand, a person in Krishna consciousness knows how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not become a victim of material consciousness. For example, for an impersonalist, the Lord or the Absolute, being impersonal, cannot eat. Whereas an impersonalist tries to avoid good eatables, a devotee knows that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and that he eats all that is offered to him in devotion. So after offering good eatables to the Lord, the devotee takes the remnants called prasadam. Thus everything becomes spiritualized and there is no danger of a downfall. The devotee takes prasadam in Krishna consciousness, whereas the non-devotee rejects it as material. The impersonalist therefore cannot enjoy life due to his artificial renunciation. And for this reason, a slight agitation of the mind pulls him down again into the pool of material existence. It is said that such a soul, even though rising up to the point of liberation, falls down again due to his not having support in devotional service.
That's the real problem we have. Arjun was thinking, I'll go to the Himalayas. And Krishna is just pointing out to him, hang on, Arjun, what are you thinking? You know, you're a warrior, you're meant to fight. And you're thinking you're going to be some sadhu, withdraw from the senses, withdraw from duties, withdraw from responsibilities. It says the impersonalist, because they don't have they deny their senses, they deny the existence of personality. They practice strictness, they certainly do, but it says here, a little agitation pulls him down. A devotee, on the other hand, he feels a bit hungry. He'll happily eat a rasgulla or something. Problem solved, right? There is some engagement for the senses. That's the whole point. You have to be engaged somehow. And therefore we have access because we try to satisfy the senses of the Lord. We try to satisfy the senses of the Lord instead of trying to satisfy our own senses. Then that gives us great satisfaction. Because Krishna is so kind, whatever we offer to him, he gives back to us with special mercy included. And that is called prasadam. And people don't believe it. They say it's all make-believe. You just putting this plate in front of Krishna, now you're pretending something's happened to it. Well, only devotees know that secret when they try prasadam. When they try prasadam. And they have it over a period of time and they know the purificatory effects of it. Atheists won't understand this. Mayavadis won't understand this. They don't get that Krishna is the most lovable person in existence. And he's so powerful that a little prasad of his can liberate you from lifetimes of nonsense. They just don't get it. They'll have to go back to their monist meditation in order to convince themselves they're doing something correct or useful. We shouldn't trivialize the process that's been given to us, but we should really accept it as being the remedy for our problems. You cannot stop your senses going towards sense objects. It's going to do that forever. There's this amusing conversation comes to mind with Prabhupada and one of his disciples, and he said to Prabhupada, I am completely free from lust. And Prabhupada replied words to the effect of, maybe you should go and see a doctor. For anyone who has taken birth here in this material world, you cannot be fully free from lust because it comes with this body. It's a part of it. It's like comes with it. And later on in the Gita, we'll understand that this lust has attacked 3 places in the body. Senses, the mind, and the intelligence, right? Lust has attacked these 3 places. These are the sitting places of lust. So how can you boldly declare I'm free from lust? No, even the great meditators like Shobari Muni, underwater, saw a couple of fish doing their business and became distracted. That's not the program we're after, denial of our realities. But rather what we do is we engage them with discipline. To the extent that the Gita says that even sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles, is endorsed by me. Kamosmi Bharatarshaba. He says that directly. I am that sex life that is not contrary to religious principles. This is in the chapter where Krishna is saying that I'm the taste of the water, the light of the sun, all of those elements. He's there. So he's there even in that sex life. And therefore in our Krishna consciousness movement, abstinence from sex is not the recommendation for everyone. Rather, it is in one sense, but the necessity of the body, the necessity of the senses is meant to go through a wholesome result, the production of children. And therefore we regulate that tendency in that environment and with those conditions. So this is why Krishna consciousness is a very special and you could say perfect, you could say peak of all philosophical evolution. Because it gives you a complete practice, a complete way of life that is completely harmonious and does not contradict any of the principles of Shastra. You have a body. It's a material body. You have your conditionings. And Shastra will give you methods for dealing with them, not by denying them, but by engaging them correctly. And then giving you methods for practicing discipline. These 2 verses have gone through the sequence that leads you to complete bewilderment. And that is the situation that Arjuna is in. That's why Krishna has gone through all this. When you start by contemplating the objects of the senses, and look at all the senses Krishna considered. He said, the sense gratification of the family will be impeded. sense gratification of the ancestors will be impeded when the offerings of Pinda to them are all stopped. How can I even enjoy the kingdom when it is tainted with blood, right? Remember all those words Krishna spoke? These are all sense gratification based considerations. How can I enjoy my senses properly? It's not possible. From that, his whole downfall took place in terms of his arguments and development. And he ended up in a state where he was totally, completely confused, lost. And Krishna is advising him, you continue with this, Arjun. You're supposed to be a great hero. You continue with this, you'll be just floating around in the material pool, just like another insignificant entity. Same as everyone else. Nothing special about you. You'll just be floating around. Call yourself a mighty warrior. That's why he goes through this process. Gives the basis, the sequence of that downfall. Is that okay? Any questions on that? We have spent more time on these verses because they are key. Very significant key verses, 2 of them. And this is all, see, Krishna is explaining to Arjun how he has arrived at this state of bewilderment and my bow Gandiva is slipping from my hands. Because he has told Arjun, or he's about to tell him, and he has told him just in a few verses before regarding Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, how to obtain steadiness of mind. That's what Arjun wanted, right? I'm now confused, bewildered about my duty. Please instruct me. Let me become steady again. So Krishna has given a very comprehensive analysis here. What is it that prevented you from becoming steady? What caused your downfall? And then we'll read the next few verses, what the remedy is for all this. So Simon, would you like to read a few verses from text 64? Say maybe 3 or 4? Just the translations.
Text 64, but a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. Go on to the next.
Yeah, keep going.
Yep. For one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. Text 66. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace?
Yes, thank you. That's a good set of verses there. Krishna's solution to Arjun's situation. One has to be free from attachment and aversion to the sense objects. Don't say, I want this, and don't say, I don't want this. Often we have this one-sided understanding of spiritual life. Just say no to something. I don't want to do this. But actually even developing in your mind the concept of I don't want this, that's another type of attachment. Isn't it? I will not do this under any circumstance. You might need some examples to understand this properly, but aversion is a problem as much as attachment is. I will only wear these type of shoes. I refuse to do this. I refuse to eat this. I refuse to go here. In Yudhishthira Maharaj's case, I refuse to tell even a single lie. Then, of course, Krishna wanted him to tell a bit of a porky at one point. And he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. So that wasn't useful for his Krishna consciousness because he was more preoccupied with not telling a lie than he was about pleasing Krishna. So aversion is also a problem. Therefore, you have to be able to control your senses through the regulative principles of freedom. Now, I like this phrase very much because people often describe that, you devotees, you have all these restrictions, no meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, gambling. Why don't you just become free and just enjoy? Actually, they're very foolish, because what they're basically saying is you should just do whatever the mind tells you. Whatever the mind wants, you should just do it. And they don't realize that they have become totally enslaved to their mind. It's almost as if the person is now obliged to fulfill anything the mind concocts. Whereas actually these are regulative principles of freedom. They actually free you to think in a sensible way. Some people can call them restrictions, but let me give you another way to look at this. Let's consider a train. Would a train consider the railway line to be a restriction? In one sense it is, right? It's there. You can only go down this path, these two rails. But without that, those rails are also the very means for that train's freedom. Without those rails, the train couldn't function in its usefulness. So for us, the regulative principles are like railway lines that allow us to propel forwards smoothly without deviation towards our destination, without left or right turns, straight down the line towards our destination. So if you want to call it restriction, you can, but I prefer to call it a mechanism for freedom. And that's the way devotees will see the regulative principles. No meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, gambling. Well, by avoiding all of these, you help yourself physically, you help yourself mentally, you help yourself in terms of cleanliness, you help yourself in terms of focus. All of it is positive. You don't harm others. You don't harm yourself. You don't lead to degraded behavior within society that often comes through intoxication and gambling. So where is the loss? You've actually opened up your ability to think freely outside of the dictates of the senses. The moment someone becomes addicted to anything, it's a type of lust, which then becomes sort of physically. Let's say someone smokes and they're addicted to it. Their life is actually a misery, but they think it's great. In between having their smoke, they're feeling miserable. And then the moment they get that cigarette or whatever it is again, they feel, now I'm in bliss. Actually, as Prabhupada says, all that's happened is that you've simply just forgotten the misery during that point. And of course, some pleasure may be there, a little bit of pleasure, especially at the beginning. But for an addict, the pleasure disappears. It just becomes full dependence. The pleasure aspect is a very small component of it. And the person thinks, it is my own free will to do this. What rubbish. You're totally addicted to it. No freedom involved at all at this point. At the initial stage, yes, you have some freedom. Once you're hooked, no more freedom. So people are in great naivety about what they consider to be free. Letting the mind go wild, with you obliged to follow its every whims, is not freedom. It is slavery. And so these regulative principles of freedom actually allow our mind to be free to think outside of the boundaries of disturbing influences on the mind. And so it's a very important concept for us. Krishna explains here that when you're satisfied with your situation and situated in Krishna consciousness, your intelligence becomes re-established again. Yes, you may have lost your intelligence through contemplating the senses and you're on your way to the material pool, but the only way you're going to get yourself out of it is by re-establishing your intelligence. That's text 65. You re-establish your intelligence, and then the problems of the material world disappear. And if you're not connected to Krishna consciousness, you will practically never have a steady mind or transcendental intelligence. And then this important verse is there. Ashantasya kuta sukham. When you yourself are not peaceful, how can there be any happiness? We want happiness, but if you're not even at a basic platform of peace and satisfaction, what can you do for yourself that's useful? Can we read the next few verses till the end of the chapter, 67 onwards, please? Sorry, not 67. Yes, 67. Who's next? Let's have Bidisha.
As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. Should
Yes, yes.
just the English text or the purport also? Okay, 68. Therefore, O mighty armed, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence.
Yes. So this is a warning, text 67 and 68. It's a warning. Don't think yourself to be a greatly advanced person. The senses are extremely strong. And if you allow the mind to focus on those senses, even if you're a greatly self-controlled person, you can be swept away quite easily. Many, many examples are there. Therefore, the practitioner tries to control their senses, not restrict them, but control them by giving them alternatives and regulation. Then 69 explains that what is the cryptic verse, what is night for all beings is time of awakening for the self-controlled, and time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. You see, things happen differently for a spiritual person. Normal behaviors become behaviors that are normally considered good, the devotee sees them as aversions. And yes, you can read the purport for that. Text 70, a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, not the one who strives to satisfy such desires. You want peace? Don't try to stop those thoughts coming into your mind. You won't succeed. But there is one thing you can do. The mind does not have to latch onto those thoughts for sense gratification. It can just be at peace. And you can just recognize, now my ears are demanding something, my tongue is demanding something. Ki jai, I'll carry on chanting. You've got your occupation, you've got your engagement. You simply carry on. Acknowledge whatever it is that's coming to you. And say, Hare Krishna, keep chanting. Keep up your practice. Continue your activity, whatever it is. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. You see, sense control is such a fundamental component which takes you all the way up to the kingdom of God, if you can do it. Arjun needs to know this, and he's been given this now in a very brief synopsis way. Your problems, Arjun, are all due to your contemplation of the objects of the senses. But you should rise above it. Control your desires. Not be disturbed when they come, and focus on the steady path of Krishna consciousness and unmotivated devotional service. That's basically what Krishna has given to Arjuna in this chapter. So maybe you can contemplate that for a few minutes. I think we'll take a break, and we'll come back, and then we'll see what thoughts there are on this, and then we'll continue with chapter 3. Is that okay? Let's say 12:15, about 10 minutes from now. All right. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Anyone there? I didn't hear anything there. Did...
Yes, Prabhu.
Ah, that's better. That's better. Better. Okay. Let's take some questions. Any questions on this chapter 2? Hopefully you have it pictured in your mind, what the different components of Krishna's answer are. And we've thrown in several terms like Buddhi Yoga, Nishkam Karma Yoga. You can go through the relevant sections in your handbook. There are some useful summaries there of this first and second chapter. So for your own revision, you'll find that useful. There are also some slides included there. Now, those slides are not exactly the presentation I've used, but I don't know where those slides came from. But you might find one or two items useful there also, some summaries. You can refer to those. But if that's okay, we will embark on chapter 3. How many lessons have we had now? We've had the introductory session, right? And chapter 1, then chapter 2. This is lesson 3, isn't it? It's actually the third lesson. We missed 1 week, so it's good that we're starting chapter 3 now. This lesson. So, chapter 3 begins with a question from Arjun. He says, "Oh Janardhan, oh Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work? My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me." You see, when we were discussing all of those points made by Krishna, Krishna gave Arjuna a series of options. He said you should not work, and instead you should engage your intelligence in Buddhi Yoga, right? But then he also says you should fight. So Arjuna is quite rightfully asking, you tell me I should not work, but then you tell me I should fight. So for Krishna, I heard it said once by someone that Krishna was actually intending to stop the Gita at chapter 2. Because he's actually given it, and that's why it's called the summary, chapter 2. But because Arjun didn't quite get it, he then continued. And what follows now from chapters 3 to 18 is the kind of expansion or purport of everything that's already been included in chapter 2. So it's a good way to look at it. Now, we definitely need expansion and purports, because we certainly cannot grasp things so quickly. So we'll find it very enjoyable also. So Krishna starts to speak. Text 3. Let's have Bidisha, please. You can read that.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "O sinless Arjun, I've already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service."
Okay. Two types of people try to understand the self: philosophical speculation and devotional service. Text 4. Sorry, I'll just give you a sequence, and then the next verse, the next person can just carry on. So Bidisha, then Smita, then Simon. Okay, and then you just rotate like that. Okay, so Smita next, please. If you can do 4 and 5.
Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. 3.5. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment.
And maybe you can do 6 as well. It's part of the sequence.
One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender.
In text 4, Krishna says that if you stop working, you don't achieve freedom from reaction. And why? Because in text 5, it says that everyone has to work anyway. Even if you pretend to yourself you're not going to work, you will have to work. You will have to engage in some action. After all, do we not breathe? Do we not subsist? Do we not live? You still have to do something in order to function. And you cannot pretend to yourself that you can be aloof from action even for a moment. That's the reality for us. That's why for us dovetailing is so much more important than abstention. And then text 6 is quite a hard-hitting verse. That if there is someone who prevents the senses acting, but his mind is constantly thinking of it, he's simply a deluder. It's called a pretender. Like a bogus yogi on a mountain who's thinking of a nice big thali laden with delectable items, and instead is meditating and refusing to eat the thali. Right? He's there saying, I'm going to abstain from this, but his mind is constantly thinking about it. It becomes a problem. And yes, we may all be guilty of that to some degree or other. Often for brahmacharis, this is a good contemplatory exercise. And how serious are you about the path of renunciation in the world? Or are you simply just renouncing the external engagements, but still meditating on it all the time? It's an introspection item. And each of us, in whichever condition we're in, we have to be doing this constantly with our own practice. If we're serious or if we're sincere. And am I just a pretender, or am I actually doing something real, substantial as recommended? But how does Krishna say one should do this properly? Let's have text 7 and 8. Vidisha, I think it's you now.
On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. Performing a prescribed duty for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work.
Your active, remember we spoke about knowledge acquiring in active senses? It's the active senses that need to be regulated by the mind. And one should engage in karma yoga without attachment. And that's better, Krishna says. And you must perform your duty because you have to. You have to. Just to survive, you have to do your duty. What is the consequence of doing work without offering it in sacrifice? Let's have text. We enter this whole section now of offerings, sacrifice, and demigod worship. So let's read. Today we're just going to really read some items. We've covered enough philosophical concepts today. We'll just read some items so that we can see what we have to meditate on properly in next week's lesson. We will recap the full details of this. Otherwise, too much to take in one go doesn't help actually. In fact, if you just meditate on this process of fall down and connect it to Arjun, that itself is a couple of hours meditation for you to give it proper justice. So let's now read texts 9, 10, 11, and 12, please. Smita.
Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, Perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation." The demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you, and thus by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. Can I
Last one,
continue, Prabhu?
12. Yeah.
In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering to them, the demigods, in return, is certainly a thief.
So there is something created by Vishnu at the start of creation. That is this concept of sacrifice. And the emphasis is there in the earlier verses, just preceding verses, that you have to do your duty. The best duty you can perform is sacrifice. If you don't do sacrifice, then any work in this world causes bondage. That's Arjun's question, really, isn't it? Really? That you say, I should not work, but I should fight. So Krishna is going to explain how you can fight, but not incur the reactions of work. That's really the crux of this chapter. How to act, but not to act in terms of producing a reaction. So, sacrifice has been established as a concept and a facility at the beginning of creation. And when this sacrifice is engaged in, and the sacrifices are done to various devatas, various controllers, they become satisfied. And we offer our thanks to them for supplying us the ingredients and necessities. When that happens, the demigods are happy and they bestow upon you more opulence and more grains and like that through proper control of the weather. And therefore text 11 is a very important verse where it says, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity reigns for everyone. If you don't do it, it's sinful. And if you do it, you have a prosperous existence. And if you don't do it, you incur sin, right? And you're a thief. That's what text 12 says. If you just take something from the demigods but don't offer it back to them, you're a thief. All right. Now, text 13. Let's do 13, 14, and 15. Please, Simon, you're back. Let's have you, please.
The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds
Oops,
of
you disappeared.
sins because they eat food which is offered for enjoyment.
Oh, carry on. You're back now. Sorry, I shouldn't have said it. You glitched just for a moment.
It might be better for someone else to read. I think I'm having some network
Oh,
issues.
okay. In that case, why don't you turn your video off? I'll know you're still there. So that'll help.
I think if Simon is having network issue, also if he switches off his video, and then he'll get more bandwidth to speak. And
You want to continue reading, Simon?
you're on mute, Simon Prabhu.
Okay, I'll try again. If it cuts out, let me know. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, that's fine. Then we'll move on.
The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. Text 15. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice.
Okay. Basically, we have to eat, right? We have to eat. We need grains in order to eat. And to get grains, you need rain. To get rain, you're supposed to do yagya, sacrifice. Now, this can sound a bit simplistic. Maybe people will think that whoever was speaking the Gita was living in a desert or something. But not quite. When it says rain, it means regulated rainfall. Right? When it talks of grains, it refers to other food items as well. And the problem is that to have nice crops, you need regulated weather conditions, ideally. That summer is summer, winter is winter, wet season is wet season. All of these things play a part. And then by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, by mercy of the demigods, then grains, things are all take place by the mercy of the demigods, ultimately by Vishnu. And that's why we perform sacrifice, because they can withhold them. Even Mother Earth can withhold grains, as Prithu Maharaj found out. She can withhold seeds and all sorts of things if she doesn't want to release them. If the people are too troublesome, she will withhold supply. And when she's happy in that the population is worshipping, using her products to worship Lord Vishnu, then she supplies. So the way to approach transcendence is through sacrifice. Text 15 says that. A life of licentious sense gratification does not produce transcendence. You need sacrifice in order to attain transcendence. That's text 15. That's what it means. So Prabhupada also says in one place that sense gratification and devotional progress go ill together. They don't go well. If someone is striving for Krishna conscious progress, but they have some very serious, gross sense gratification still going on, it's an incompatible situation because you're dragging yourself downwards constantly with your sense gratification agenda. Now, everyone still engages in some sense gratification, but the point is it needs to be regulated and needs to be controlled. Prabhupada says in one place, in the Bhagavatam, he says in a purport, sense gratification is like salt. You cannot have too much or too little, but you have to have just the right quantity. Isn't it? Salt is missing from a sabji or prep, it doesn't taste right. Too little is a problem. Too much is a problem also. It's inedible. And just right is just right. All the flavor comes out, all the taste comes, it's nice. So for us, this is why this is a very practical, realistic program, not based on denial. The reality is we have a body, we have senses, we have a network of senses centered around the mind. We need to have some sense gratification. The question is, what type of sense gratification and how much? And that's what the regulations are there to guide us in. All right. So sacrifice should be now a concept in your minds. As a Brahmana, I need to do sacrifice. As a devotee, I need to be thinking of sacrifice. And what does sacrifice mean? What does sacrifice actually mean? Let's consider maybe literally. Let's have a guess. Maybe both of you can have a guess.
Tapasya, Prabhu?
Tapasya, yes, but what does it mean? What is actually tapasya?
Something that we really not like to carry out, but somehow has to carry out because it's our duty.
Yes, that's very good. That's very good. We do something that we don't want to do. And maybe another angle on that is when you sacrifice something.
Something valuable.
Huh? Yes, keep going. Something that you really want, you give up.
Something
That's
valuable
sacrifice,
to
no?
myself, yeah.
Smita was saying that sacrifice means you do something that you really don't want to do.
Mhm.
But another aspect of it is you give up something that you really like. That's sacrifice. You're sacrificing something. You're sacrificing a jalebi. You're sacrificing this. You want it, but you're not going to have it. Parents sacrifice their own comforts, for the welfare of the children often, right? Often to facilitate the children, they will undergo sacrifices in their life. We won't do this. We won't go on holiday. We won't have this. We won't have that. It's like that. You give up
So
something.
it's uncomfortable initially.
Yes. Something that goes against your natural sense gratificatory desires. And therefore, sacrifice is meant to be a little bit uncomfortable. It is supposed to be uncomfortable. Tapasya is not meant to be, I'm in the forest engaged in blissful tapasya. What that means is that you're engaged in the forest undergoing difficulties. That's what tapasya sacrifice means. There has to be an element of difficulty there. Not because we desire the difficulty, but because we're doing something else that's more important. The sage goes to the forest and he eats only very meager things. Why? Because he doesn't want to spend his entire time acquiring tasty items. He wants to spend his time situated in transcendence. So for the purpose of transcendence, he will give up those things. And then let's say someone comes to him with a big plate of nice items. The sage would be quite correct in giving those up too. Why? Because he knows that if his senses indulge in those items, it will further his meditation, contemplation, and lead to his downfall. So he's quite right to give that up also. So you see, the goal in all our austerities and sacrifices and difficulties is the end result of serving Krishna or practicing the process of serving Krishna. That's why we do these things. Otherwise, what does it matter in the big scheme of things? This person ate one less thali of food. Is that a big achievement? It's not really. But the achievement is this person abstained from this and meditated on the Lord for that time. That is the real achievement. So, grains, sacrifice. And sacrifice is how to reach Krishna. Text 16, Krishna tells Arjuna that if sacrifice is not followed, life is sinful. Life is a sin. And here's another concept now, text 17. Maybe we can have text 17, 18, and 19, please. I don't know who's next, maybe Vidisha?
But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme.
Yes. Work without attachment, you attain the supreme. If you're fully engaged in Krishna, you have no further duties to perform for others. And this is an interesting, this is a substantial point here. Beginning of the Gita in the introduction, Prabhupada refers to this point that when one serves Krishna, is fully dedicated to serving Krishna, he has no other duties. Devarshi bhutapta nirnam na kinkara. No further obligations to anyone else. The devas, the bhutas, the rishis. That's only for someone dedicated fully to the service of the Lord. And such a person who is fully in transcendence doesn't actually have to do anything. Doesn't have to do anything at all. But text 20, 21, 22 explains that if there is such a person who is fully transcendental and he has nothing that he needs to do at all, still he will do it. Still he will do something. Why? Now you can tell me. Why? Why will he still do something if a person is fully on the transcendental platform?
As an example to less advanced people.
Yes, as an example to less advanced people, to people in general. And why is that important? Surely it's more important that I remain in my transcendence rather than lowering myself to the task of performing activities. The answer is in 21. Smita, can you read 21?
Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues.
Yes. People naturally follow people. These days, people are following all the wrong people. They're following all the, socially active or socially accepted or socially dynamic or whatever people that you see paraded around on television and in different reality shows and like that. These are the modern day heroes for people. Heroes and heroines. People who are the most degraded, debauched people. They become the the ones that society looks up to. But actually, no. This is important, that if there actually is a great man, someone who's actually properly established and has some stature, and people naturally will look up to him and follow that behavior. And that's why at this moment, contemporary news, Prince Andrew is going through a whole load of stuff. He's not behaved in a particularly great way. And because he's in a role in the royal family where naturally you would expect people to look up to that role, so people are understandably disappointed. So Krishna gives his own example, text 22. He says, O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me at all in all the three worlds. I don't want anything, I don't need anything, I don't even require any food to subsist, but I engage in prescribed duties. He says, obviously for me, I'm not obliged to do anything for any purpose, but I'm still doing the prescribed duties, so why not you? Even I'm doing them, Krishna says. Just to set an example, because if I failed to carefully do my duties, people would follow me, even though, despite the fact that, and especially because they won't understand that Krishna is different to us. They'll naturally follow him. So Krishna says, yes, even I do it, so that people in general will try to follow what I'm doing. And therefore they will get benefit, even though I don't need it myself. That's real leadership, no? That's a really good leader, one who does that. And he says, if I did not perform prescribed duties, all the worlds will be put to ruination. I'll destroy the peace of living entities. And he says, as the ignorant perform their duties with attachment, the learned can act without attachment for the sake of leading people on the right path. It really is a nice conclusion, a well-rounded presentation. I hope it's been quite clear how Krishna has developed this theme from sacrifice to duty to performance and action. And so there's very much a strong endorsement coming here that Arjun, whatever your condition is, you should still conduct your duty. Because even I am doing so, Krishna says. So it's a substantial section and a substantial development. I'll just touch on one more point and then we'll stop there. Text 26. Could you read that, please, Vidisha?
so as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness.
So if you go to someone's house, you're preaching to them, and they're telling you what they do in their life. They're doing different duties, different. I mean, should the brahmachari go to the house of a householder and tell them, "Why are you all working? You should stop working immediately. Become like me." Is that correct preaching? Well, Krishna doesn't seem to think so here. Krishna doesn't seem to think so. He says a learned person should not induce them to stop work. He should encourage them to work in the spirit of devotion and engage their activities in Krishna consciousness. That is correct preaching. There are different strokes for different folks, as they say. Different responsibilities, duties for different people. If someone wants to be a renunciate in the renounced order of life and has come to that conclusion after proper study, contemplation, and proper understanding of the choices, the choice of doing so, then they're acting on a different principle to someone who whimsically just says, I don't want to work, so I'm going to adopt this lifestyle. As Krishna says, not working is not an option. So if you take up that role, it should be done with a proper, solid spiritual basis. So the last thing that's correct for such a person is to wander into the home of someone who has not done that study, that research, does not have that understanding, has their duties, and to give them wrong information. In the old days, these things used to happen, you know. Prabhupada's disciples, the family of ISKCON was all largely temple residents. In fact, that's how it basically started, and all devotees were basically living in the temple, and those living outside were basically in Maya. That was the that was the understanding. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily changed much today. It's probably still there to some degree or other, but the point is we've matured much more as a movement now. And we recognize that devotional service can be practiced properly in all parts of your Varna and Ashram system, and indeed has to be. So it's not correct to stop someone doing something. If someone is working, you don't stop them. You rather try to get them to engage their facility. Now, what is the greatest facility that one gains through household life or through working? It is money, right? That's the consequence of your work, your job. So that is why Prabhupada started the life membership program all those years ago, because he realized that not everyone is going to shave their heads and join the ashram. It's not for everyone. But the only way these people who are engrossed in matter, engrossed in money making, the only way, engrossed in their family dealings, the only way that they can achieve success is if they offer some of their fruits to Krishna. We've been speaking about Nishkam Karma Yoga. Now, this isn't quite Nishkam, this is more like Sakam, where a portion of the fruits is offered to Krishna. But it's the start of that person's Karma Yoga, that journey in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, it should be seen as a duty for householders, and there was Prabhupada's desire also, seen as a duty that the householders, the Grihastha ashram, acts as a support for the general propagation of Krishna consciousness in society. Actually, if we think about it very carefully, considering all the ashrams, the brahmachari, the grihastha, the vanaprastha, sannyas, the only ashram which earns money is the grihastha ashram. All the rest are renounced ashrams. Now, putting aside emergency conditions where different things have to happen, we're not so worried about that. So that means that for the society to function, the grihastha ashram has to take up its duty to support the remaining three ashrams and society in general. So this knowledge is often missing in society. And therefore, when society isn't structured correctly with those people acting correctly according to their responsibilities and duties, then you get a mixed up situation. You get a real mess, where then people in other ashrams start having to acquire money somehow or other and like that. So we should learn how to act according to our situation. The way Krishna is expecting Arjun to act is not the same way that Krishna expects another Brahmana to act. And it's different to the way Krishna expects a Vaishya to act, or a Shudra. We should not mix everything up. We should know clearly what our situation is. What is our Varana? What is our ashram? And we should follow the prescriptions and rules for our particular situation, because then that is our prescribed duty. The Krishna will later on talk about performing your own duty versus performing someone else's duty. And so this is why we need to learn. Now, we've used this term, prescribed duty, quite a lot so far. We've heard it in the verses. We need to know what our prescribed duty is. Largely, it is determined by the profession you've been trained in. But then, with the guidance and the insight of an advanced person, generally your spiritual master or a senior mentor or someone, they will be able to give you directions for your life, how you should, what you should do in your life. What services should you do? What should be the framework of your sadhana? You know, what is your service to Krishna? How should you balance your material aspects of your life with your spiritual aspects? These are all essential points. And and everyone needs those elements to be harmoniously balanced. Otherwise, something will be out of sync. Either you'll prosper materially and make no progress spiritually, or you'll go naively down a spiritual path with a pretend renunciation. Remember? Pretend. Mityachara su uchyate. That was a verse just a few verses earlier. Pretender. You don't want to be a pretender in spiritual life, and you don't want to be a sense enjoyer either. Therefore, you need guidance on how to do it happily, wholesome, in a wholesome manner, and for proper progress. But yes, so everyone in society needs to be educated as to what they should do as part of their duty. And here specifically, Prabhupada is referring to those, so as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to fruitive results of prescribed duties. The typical people we meet, householders, those working, is the general sense. Not devotees. We're not talking about devotees here. Devotees are operating in a slightly different platform, whatever ashram they're in. But this is people in large, in general in the world, whose lives are centered around sense gratification. So let's develop some maturity in how we deal with them too. Any questions? All right, well, we can close for today. It's time anyway, it's 1 o'clock. So please go through these verses, chapter 3, as we've done the, you'll notice as we're teaching, we're kind of covering the material twice. First in a sense of going through it quite quickly as we've done, and then in terms of recapping and drawing out certain points. So we'll do that at the start of the next session for what we've covered today in terms of chapter 3. So I hope you find the system useful. It allows you to consider the material twice, which is very much needed, because otherwise it can just be gone, enters your mind and goes. So please play your part as well. You need to do the revision in the background. Otherwise you won't get the most from it. Yes, Bidisha?
This was related to the question of memorizing the slokas. So in the handbook, we can see certain slokas have been spotlighted over there. So do we need to memorize those? Or is it like we have to memorize all? So I'm confused with that part a little bit.
Yes, I think actually what would have been very useful in this course is if maybe you can request her somehow. We can request Deepa as the kind of course overseer.
Mhm.
to join the session, because see that part of the assessment side, I don't tend to get into it.
Yeah.
So how the framework of the course is organized, I think we need some input from her.
Yes.
So maybe you can drop her a message or something and ask her to possibly even come on the session, because
Yeah.
then for 5-10 minutes, and then we can actually, I can also give some inputs into how you can do once we know what you need to do.
Yes. Because slokas are my weaknesses, just for
Right.
remembering them. So I could see some of them, but I was not sure anything. Sam and Prabhu the other day, I think last week he also shared some of them. So I was not sure, like we memorize those only.
I mean, I'll tell you some shlokas which you'll definitely need to memorize. You could
Okay.
start learning those straight away, you know?
Yes.
Are you looking at page 12, is it? Sanskrit
Okay.
memorization shlokas? Is that where you are? Or
Oh, in the handbook? Yes.
okay. So yes, so there you've got a few there. Let's start with 7, Karpanya dosha. This is a very key verse. This one you should learn. This is the transition between Arjuna accepting Krishna as the Guru. So definitely 2.7. 2.13 is absolute basic, right? The soul, transmigration. You need that. I mean, these all maybe all memorization shlokas. They all look very substantial to me. At least
Okay.
start with those two. That will take you some time.
Sure. Prabhu.
And then hopefully Deepa will give some more details as to what exactly you'll be assessed on.
Okay.
So have a
Smita.
go, and then if you want some tips on learning shlokas and that, we can discuss that next week also.
Yes.
All right, so thank you all very much for your participation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna. Hari Bol. Prabhu.